Picture this. You're sitting at home. You have 30 minutes before work. You have a dream to speak English fluently. But you don't have a teacher. You don't have expensive classes. You only have yourself and your determination. The question is, can you still succeed? The answer is absolutely yes. Welcome to Talk, Learn, Teach, the podcast that teaches you how to learn English the right way. I'm James.
And I'm Emma. And you know what? The best language learner I know is someone who taught herself at home. She had no special advantage. She had no native speaker friends, but she had something powerful. She had a system, a plan, and most importantly, she had the discipline to stick with it.
That's what we're talking about today. Not just how to learn English, but how to train yourself to become a self-directed learner, someone who doesn't need a teacher to improve, someone who can take control of their own progress.
Because here's the truth. The learners who succeed are not the ones with perfect conditions. They're the ones who create their own learning system and follow it consistently.
So, please subscribe to Talk, Learn, Teach. We release new episodes every week, and each one is designed to help you succeed in your English journey.
And share this with a friend who wants to improve their English. Tell them about Talk, Learn, Teach, because the more people in our community, the stronger we all become together.
Now, before we start, I want to be honest about something. Self-study is not easy. It requires discipline. It requires patience. There will be days when you don't feel motivated.
Absolutely. But here's the thing, self-study is also the most powerful way to learn, because when you teach yourself, you discover what works for you. You build habits that last. You take ownership of your learning.
So let's start with the biggest obstacle. Most people fail at self-study not because they're not smart. They fail because they don't have a system.
Right. They start with excitement. They buy a bunch of courses, they download 10 different apps, they watch random videos on YouTube, and within 2 weeks, they're confused and overwhelmed.
So the first thing you need is clarity. You need to know exactly what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. Let me ask you, Emma, when you learned English on your own, what was your starting point?
My starting point was actually very low. I was at an A1 level. I knew very basic words. I could say hello and goodbye, but I couldn't have a real conversation.
And what was your first decision?
My first decision was to accept where I was. Not to feel bad about it, but to understand that A1 is not a permanent place. It's just the beginning, and from the beginning, I could grow.
That's an important mindset. A lot of learners at A1 feel discouraged. They look at B2 or C1 speakers and think, that's impossible for me.
But they're looking at the wrong comparison. At A1, you're not supposed to sound like a B2 speaker. You're just supposed to start. You're just supposed to build a foundation.
So what did you do as your first step?
I created a simple schedule. I said, every morning I will listen to a 5-minute English lesson. Every afternoon I will read something easy. Every night I will write 5 sentences.
5 minutes and 5 sentences. That's very manageable.
Exactly. The key was making it manageable, because if I had tried to study 3 hours a day, I would have quit after 1 week.
So lesson number 1 is this. Start small and start consistent. A small routine that you can repeat every day is better than a big routine that you can't maintain.
100%. I think people underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. 1 year of studying for 10 minutes every day is more powerful than 1 month of studying for 3 hours a day.
Because repetition is what builds neural pathways. Your brain learns through exposure and repetition, not through intensity.
Right. So if you're at A1, don't aim to study for 1 hour. Aim to study for 15 minutes. Make it something you can actually do.
Now let's talk about what you actually do in those 15 minutes, because time is only valuable if you're doing the right things.
Good point. So I want to introduce something I call the 3-pillar system: listening, reading, and speaking. These are the 3 things you need to develop.
Why these 3?
Because together they create balance. Listening helps your pronunciation and comprehension. Reading helps your vocabulary and grammar. Speaking helps your confidence and fluency.
So if you only do one of them, you're missing something.
Yes, but here's the good news. You don't need to spend equal time on all three. You can adjust based on your needs and your level.
Can you give an example? Let's say someone is at A1. What would their routine look like?
Okay, so at A1, I would focus mostly on listening and reading because speaking comes later. So maybe the routine looks like this: 5 minutes of listening to a very easy English podcast or video, 5 minutes of reading a short, simple text, and 5 minutes of trying to repeat some words or phrases out loud.
5 minutes of speaking?
At A1, yes, because at A1 you don't have many words yet, so speaking practice is mostly about pronunciation and getting comfortable with the sounds of English.
That makes sense. But what about someone at B1 or B2?
At B1 or B2, you have more vocabulary, so you can speak more. Your routine might look like this: 10 minutes of listening to a podcast or video, 5 minutes of reading a more complex text, and then 15 or 20 minutes of speaking practice. Maybe you speak to yourself, or you have a conversation partner, or you use an app.
So as you progress, the balance changes.
Yes, you're always doing listening and reading, but you're doing more speaking as you advance.
Now let's go deeper into each pillar. Let's start with listening. What's the biggest mistake people make with listening?
They try to listen to materials that are too advanced. They listen to native speakers talking at normal speed. They understand maybe 5%, and then they think their English is bad.
But the problem is not their English. The problem is the material.
Exactly. So here's my advice. Find English that is slower, clearer, more simple. There are hundreds of podcasts designed specifically for English learners. Find one that matches your level.
And how do you know if it matches your level?
You should understand about 70 to 80% of what you hear, not 100%, because then there's no learning, but also not 10%, because then it's too frustrating.
So you want to be in that sweet spot where you understand most of it, but there are still new words to discover.
Right. And here's another important tip. Listen to the same content more than once. Don't always jump to new material.
Why?
Because repetition helps your brain absorb the language. The first time you listen, you get the general meaning. The second time, you notice individual words. The third time, you start to really understand the patterns and the rhythm.
So if you have a 5-minute podcast, you would listen to it multiple times over several days?
Yes. Maybe you listen to it 3 times in 1 week, and by the third time, you understand much more, and you've also absorbed many new phrases into your memory.
That's powerful. Now let's talk about reading. What's important when you're reading?
First, choose material that interests you. If you're not interested in the topic, it's hard to stay motivated.
What kind of materials work well for self-study?
Short stories, articles about topics you care about, children's books designed for learners, scripts from English lessons, even song lyrics if you enjoy music.
And at what level do you start reading?
Even at A1, you can read simple sentences, simple stories. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, simple is better.
What about vocabulary? When you're reading and you see a word you don't know, what do you do?
This is important. You don't stop to look up every word. That breaks your focus and makes reading tiring. Instead, you try to guess the meaning from the context. Continue reading, and if the word appears again, you'll understand it better the next time.
So you're only looking up the words that are really important.
Yes, maybe 1 or 2 words per page, not 10 words.
Now let's talk about the third pillar, speaking. This is where a lot of learners get stuck.
Right, because many learners don't have anyone to practice with. They think they can't speak if they're alone.
But that's not true, right?
It's completely not true. You can practice speaking alone. In fact, this is one of the most powerful ways to build confidence.
How do you do that?
There are many ways. You can describe what you see around you. You can talk about your day. You can retell a story you heard. You can even pretend to have a conversation with someone.
Pretend to have a conversation?
Yes, you ask yourself a question, and then you answer it. For example, you might ask, "What did you do today?" And then you answer, Today, I woke up at 7, I made coffee, I listened to an English podcast, then I went to work. This is all speaking practice.
Even though there's only one person talking?
Even though there's only one person, because you're forming sentences, you're using the words you know, you're getting comfortable with English sounds.
And after you do that for a while, you can find a conversation partner.
Yes, you can find a conversation partner, but even with a partner, the speaking you did alone was preparation. It made you more confident and more ready.
Now, I want to talk about something important: discipline. How do you stay disciplined when you're studying alone?
That's the hardest part, honestly.
What helped you?
For me, the most important thing was connecting my studies to my goals. Why do I want to learn English? What will English give me?
And what was your answer?
I wanted to understand English movies and shows. I wanted to talk to people from other countries. I wanted to have more opportunities in my career. So whenever I felt like quitting, I remembered these reasons.
So your goals were your motivation.
Yes. And I also tracked my progress. I kept a simple notebook. Every day, I wrote down what I studied. At the end of the month, I looked back and saw that I had studied 20 days out of 30. I saw the words I had learned. I saw the improvement in my listening.
Seeing that progress was motivating.
Very motivating, because progress is real. Even if it feels slow, it's happening.
Now, let's talk about levels. A1 is the beginner level. What about B1 and B2? How does self-study change as you progress?
At A1, you're building basics. You're learning your first words, your first sentences, your first conversations. The focus is on quantity. You need to absorb a lot of material.
And at B1?
At B1, you can understand the main points. You can have simple conversations. So now the focus shifts. You start paying attention to details, nuances, connecting ideas together. You read longer texts. You watch longer videos.
What about B2?
At B2, you're close to the advanced level. You can understand most of what you read and hear. You can speak with good fluency. So now the focus is on perfecting, on sounding more natural, on understanding deeper meanings and humor and cultural references.
So the content gets harder, but your ability to handle it gets better too.
Exactly. And here's something interesting. At B2, self-study becomes even more important because there are fewer classes and teachers available for advanced learners. So you have to manage your own learning.
What's a good B2 self-study routine?
Maybe you listen to real podcasts, not English learner podcasts, but real content. You read books or news articles. You watch movies or documentaries without subtitles. And you speak regularly, maybe with a language exchange partner.
And you're doing this daily?
Yes, maybe an hour a day, but you can adjust it based on your schedule.
Now I want to talk about the role of technology. There's so many apps and websites for English learners. How do you choose?
That's a good question, and it's overwhelming because there are so many options.
What's your advice?
My advice is to choose 1 or 2 tools that you really like and use them consistently. Don't jump around to every new app.
Why?
Because consistency is more important than variety. Using one app every day for 6 months is better than using 5 apps for 1 week each.
And what kind of apps do you recommend?
For listening, I like apps that have slow, clear English. For reading, I like apps that have texts with built-in translations. And for speaking, I like apps that give you a partner to talk to or that record you so you can hear yourself.
So you're looking for apps that support your 3 pillars.
Yes, and also free apps are fine. You don't need to pay for expensive courses to succeed.
Now let's talk about something that trips up a lot of learners: plateaus. When you're studying, sometimes you feel like you're not improving anymore.
This happens to everyone, and it's very discouraging.
How did you handle it?
When I hit a plateau, I would change my materials. If I had been reading children's books, I would try a podcast. If I had been listening to the same podcast, I would listen to a different one. The change itself is motivating.
So you're mixing things up not to avoid consistency, but to keep yourself engaged.
Exactly. You stay consistent with your routine. You study every day, but you refresh the content every few weeks.
That makes sense. Now, I want to ask you something. What's one thing you wish you had known when you started learning English on your own?
I wish I had known that mistakes are not failures. When I started, I was so afraid of making mistakes when I spoke. I would prepare sentences in my head before saying them. It was exhausting.
And now?
Now I make mistakes all the time, and it's fine, because mistakes mean I'm pushing myself. Mistakes mean I'm trying, and mistakes are how I learn.
That's a powerful lesson.
Yes, so my advice to anyone starting is this: be patient with yourself. Progress is not always visible, but it's happening. Your ears are getting better, your memory is getting stronger, your brain is creating new neural pathways every time you study.
So even when it feels slow, growth is happening.
Always. This is why I recommend not comparing yourself to others. Compare yourself only to who you were before. Did you understand more English than you did 6 months ago? If the answer is yes, you're succeeding.
Now, before we finish, I want to give some practical tips for someone who's starting today.
Yes, let's do that.
So if you're starting at A1, here's what I would do. First, pick one podcast designed for English learners, maybe just 5 minutes long. Listen to it every day for 1 week.
Good start.
Second, find one short text to read, maybe a simple story. Read it every day.
Third, speak for just 5 minutes a day. Describe your day, describe what you see, anything.
Do this for 2 weeks. Don't change anything, just repeat the same content.
After 2 weeks, you can add new content, but keep the old routine as your foundation.
And how long does this take before you see real results?
Honest answer, 3 months. In 3 months of consistent work, you will notice a real difference. You will understand more, you will speak with more confidence.
3 months is not that long.
It's not. It's actually quick if you think about it. 3 months of daily practice. That's very achievable.
Now for B1 and B2 learners who want to keep improving.
At B1, you're ready to consume real English, real podcasts, real books, real conversations. So I would say spend 30 minutes a day, 10 minutes listening, 10 minutes reading, 10 minutes speaking.
And at B2?
At B2, spend an hour a day if you can, but make it more challenging. Watch documentaries, read complex articles, have real conversations with native speakers or advanced learners.
And the result?
The result is in 6 months at B1 or B2 level. If you follow this, you will reach a level of fluency that opens doors. Doors to jobs, to relationships, to experiences.
So the investment pays off.
The investment definitely pays off, because English is not just a language, it's a key that opens the world.
Thank you so much, Emma, for sharing all of this.
Thank you, James.
So to everyone listening, remember this. You don't need a teacher. You don't need expensive classes. You don't need perfect conditions. You need 3 things: a clear system, daily practice, and patience.
And if you have these 3 things, your English will improve, I promise. So please subscribe to Talk, Learn, Teach. We have new episodes every week about how to learn English and how to grow as a person.
And share this episode with someone who needs it. Tell them about Talk, Learn, Teach, because the best way to learn is in community.
In the comments, tell us about your English learning journey. What's your biggest challenge? What's one small step you're going to take this week?
We read every comment, and your stories inspire us.
We're in this together. Your success is our success.
So take that first step today. Listen to one podcast, read one text, speak one sentence. Just begin.
Because every expert was once a beginner, and the difference between the beginner and the expert is not talent, it's time and consistency.
You have the time, you have the consistency available to you. Now it's time to use it.
We believe in you.
See you next week. Bye, friends.